Welcome back to another episode of What Did People Write About ENFJs and the Extroverted Feeling Function. My name is Doris. I'm a type and relationship coach and I have ENFJ preferences. Today's book is Navigating Midlife Using Typology as a Guide by Eleanor S. Corlett and Nancy B. Millner. We're going to start with typological descriptions of extroverted feeling types and ENFJs. Then there is a profile of an ENFJ in midlife and an analysis that we're also going to cover, right? Typological descriptions. ENFJ, dominant extroverted feeling, auxiliary introverted intuition, tertiary extroverted sensing, inferior introverted thinking. They have grouped ENFJ and ESFJ in this description because ESFJs, of course, also lead with dominant extroverted feeling. Extroverted feelers orient themselves around relationships, seeking affirmation and gaining energy from their many friends in the groups they belong to. Yes. With their great need for interaction and validation from others, they may focus on others' needs at the expense of not meeting their own. Yes, I think at this point it's a common theme because that is what tends to happen and that's how our brains work. They attend to others, make them comfortable, and demonstrate their care for them through gracious warmth and hospitality. Sensitive to nuances in interpersonal relationships, they strive to make others feel good and keep the social environment agreeable to everyone. Absolutely. They thrive on being needed. The image of helper tends to dominate their persona during accommodation since they define who they are in terms of their relationship to others. When employed, they may view their salary as the icing on the cake. Okay. So helper during accommodation, I'm not sure what that means. Yes, we like to help, speaking for myself. And I know that I'm repeating myself, but this is very much, midlife is one of those times where if I don't want to actually do something, I'm more in touch with what is it that I actually don't want to do, and then it's okay to say no. Seeing salary as icing on the cake, I don't know. The salary, I didn't work in corporate for that long, but the salary always felt like it was not quite fair and not quite enough. So, yeah, it's nice to get paid, obviously, but this description is making extroverted feeling types seem very altruistic, like we're just doing good for the sake of doing good. But when it comes to work, I think we're going to have to be pragmatic and say, no, people work to make money to pay bills. When their need for harmony leads them to sacrifice their own needs for others, they may become resentful. Absolutely. And I think that is one of those general things. Any type pouring out of an empty cup is eventually going to turn around and say, look, what gives? However, extroverted feelers are quickly reassured of the value of their roles when they receive praise, affirmation, and validation from others. Yeah, seriously, a warm word or a hug can go a long way. You forgive and forget. With all the advantages of their extroverted feeling, they do recognize some disadvantages to their preferences, which they often try to alleviate at midlife. Again, it's something that I believe everybody is going to do because, like Jung said, in midlife the inferior function or the unconscious functions are pushing to the surface because the psyche wants to balance itself. They see themselves as taking strong position on others fairly quickly, often when they have little appropriate data. Yeah, I think I've mentioned that before as well. Very quick to make a decision. Frustrated and stressed by open-endedness and deadlines, they may push for closure without seeking all the available information. I'm frustrated by open-endedness, but I feel like I've always responded well to a deadline. If I know when something is happening, I know how long stuff takes. So there's this whole thing of time blindness. I know how long stuff takes, so I am able to plan my time quite well. A deadline is actually a good thing for me. But also, I'm not going to spend a lot of time seeking all the available information because if I have a good sense of where things are going, then that's usually the vibe I go with. At midlife, they often consciously try to alleviate their need for control by working more collaboratively. Need for control is definitely a red thread through my life. I like knowing what's going to happen and I like being mistress of my own domain. And working collaboratively, yeah, there may be a collaborative project that I have in the works right now, but I'm not going to talk about that yet. By focusing primarily on their extroverted feeling, they often have difficulty getting in touch with their own values and emotions, which often have been repressed within them. That resonates. I am very aware of how I want to address a situation, and that incorporates, like, I don't know what the feeling is, but I know what I want to do about it, if that makes sense. The practice for me in the last 10 years or so has been to be more in my body, pay more attention and notice physical sensations. Is this a rapid heartbeat? Is this a flutter in my stomach or in my chest? This whole being in my body a little more. And then being able to name it. So basically what I'm saying is, for me as an introverted intuiting auxiliary type, it is very quick. Like, my mind is very quick. And my mind is interpreting the signals from my body very quickly, often bypassing my conscious awareness. The conscious awareness of what is going on in the physiological body is something that I'm trying to slow down to pay more attention to. With that, I have more conscious awareness of the underlying, they call it feeling or emotion, I would call it affect. Then the interpretation or the story I tell myself around the affect that becomes the emotion in my mind. The behavior is based on the emotion. But yeah, in general, being in touch with my own values and emotions, because I try to keep the harmony with others and I want to make sure everybody else is happy. Yeah, I have lots of memories that stand out where I don't know how I feel by myself, because it depends on who I'm with. This is something that is just how my brain is wired. It's something I'm trying to actively work on, because I have the language using this model that is extroverted feeling. So what would my introverted feeling think? For introverted feeling, the question is, what is really important here? And then I can gauge what is really important for me. And then I can make a decision about my involvement with a certain group or whatever it is, or decision that I want to make. And again, that involves slowing everything way down, which is not easy. Because they are often busy taking care of others, they may lack insight into themselves, basically what we just said. One midlife task for many extroverted feeling types, therefore, is to find congruence between their own inner values and their desire to help others first. Again, what we said, like this whole thing of you being asked for help and you just say yes, even though you might have had other plans for yourself to read a book, but then reading a book is not as important. Taking care of your own mental health is not as important as other people's practical needs. That is definitely going strong. But also I feel like we're coming more into a time, I've said this before, where women in particular are learning that we're not doormats and that it's okay to have our own needs, and that indeed you cannot pour from an empty cup. So take care, oxygen mask on yourself first. Integration of introverted feeling, like I said, presents the challenge of finding out what they really want. Yep. Ongoing struggle. As they pay more attention to their own needs, they begin to restructure themselves within their relationships. Yeah. Having previously sought answers primarily from the outer world, they increasingly turn within for answers, using their own values as a reference point for decision making. That and tarot cards, journaling and meditation. Resetting priorities, redefining reality, and restructuring themselves within their relationships often become important midlife tasks. Yes. And this is also why I believe that a lot of relationships fizzle out in midlife, because people with dominant extroverted feeling preferences come to realize this cannot be all there is. It can't all be about others. When is it going to be about me? And those are difficult but important conversations to have. And I'm also here to say that the relationship you've had for the last 20 years doesn't have to end because you want to redirect your efforts and focus. If you want to keep the relationship, there are ways to have at least conversations and making space for discussing what that might look like. The relationship you're in is a system, right? And you've been upholding this particular role in the system for so long that now that you want to change your role, like the wheels or the cogs are moving differently, that is going to throw everybody off. It is worth talking about it, is what I'm saying. Okay. And then they have a couple of paragraphs on ENFJs in particular. The search for meaning for ENFJs is a long one. Oh, yeah. But it gradually becomes less deliberate. I'm still in the deliberate phase. Affirming that they are valuable in their own right, their feeling gives them new answers even without them having to formulate the questions. I'm not there yet. I'm still questioning. As with most NFs, the questions of intimacy and identity become increasingly important during this transition. They may ask themselves questions such as, can I remain in the context of this relationship without feeling guilty? Or who am I apart from these roles, right? Who am I? What do I contribute? What do I receive? And how do I want to go forward? Those are definitely things worth looking at for everybody. Asking ultimate and spiritual questions about their purpose in life helps them to refocus on their roles and trust their inner awareness. Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. I'm in the middle of that right now. When stressed, they are often able to focus on their introverted intuition, asking themselves such questions as, what's stopping me? Why can't I make this change? And what are the alternatives? I mean, yeah, that's journaling every day. Why am I not doing it? I know what I'm supposed to be doing. Why am I not doing it? There must be something, and if I just find the right answer, then the energy will shift. Here's hoping. Development of their sensing function may include learning to enjoy one day at a time. Yep. Slowing the pace of life helps ENFJs focus more on the moment, replacing what if with what is as they become more in touch with their senses. I like that reframe. Because as Byron Katie said, you can argue with reality. You're only going to lose every time. An increased awareness of physical stress may help them become more intentional about allowing themselves time for physical activities as a means of alleviating stress. That is something I would be so interested to hear. If you're also an extroverted feeling type and you're also in midlife, what role has sports played in your life? Have you been active? Do you have a team sport or an exercise regimen that you follow every day? Because I'm finding it so difficult to stick with something. I go through phases. I will have weeks, sometimes even months of working out 2-3 times a week. Then as soon as there is a break in the routine with a trip or whatever, it'll be at least 6 months of absolutely nothing because I can't find my way back into that routine. I wonder what that's like for other people. Seriously, please let me know. Their inferior thinking function can be used more intentionally to support their own personal values, helping them present their conclusions in well thought out ways. Not while speaking. Like the well thought out way is definitely something that I have to write down first, I think. Writing helps with that, to clarify the ideas and structure the thoughts, because talking is always going to be a little waffly. But introverted thinking, I mean, I went and got a master's in my late 40s. So yeah, introverted thinking is definitely coming up a little bit more. The analysis side of things, I can honestly say that I love a good research paper. The valuing process of introverted feeling can help them prioritize their values. Their objective thinking may help them focus more on what is really important to them by helping them realize that they can't be everything to everyone. Oh, sweetie. Yeah, we've learned that a while ago, and it's still annoying. There is still a part of me that thinks I'm just going to keep trying. I know I don't like everyone, so I know intellectually that not everyone is going to like me, but I want to like everyone, and I want everyone to like me. Like, that's still there. Now, as an adult, though, I have other tools to deal with that, and that's also something that comes with age, I think. Thinking may also help them cope with conflict more effectively by limiting their directions, increasing their focus, and enabling them to become more objective. Often hurt by criticism, they recognize their need for positive feedback, but understand the necessity of becoming less sensitive to personal criticism. I mean, if I had a nickel for every time I heard you needed thicker skin, Jesus. I always thought, I don't need a thicker skin, you need to be a little nicer. But the reality is people are stressed, and sometimes definitely at work and in many relationships and friendships, fights happen and people have short fuses. In an ideal world, our higher selves and loving souls will always see where the other person is coming from and recognize that they might be projecting or had a bad day. Whatever they say is not really about us. It says more about them than it does about us, and it might be a projection. And in reality, it's just you feel criticized and then you react out of this normal kind of defense mechanism that you built when you were a kid. That's also how brains work. And that just happens. By learning to live with less external affirmation, they also feel less of a need to prove themselves. I mean, yeah, every day a little more. Their thinking function can also help them cope more effectively and openly with conflict as they become more objective and learn to assess the pros and cons of their actions and assess the effects their actions will have on others. Thinking and coping with conflict, absolutely. I think that's something in general that I learned during my type training, that feeling types flip into thinking in midlife. People, the message that they hear most often is, oh, you used to be so nice, right? Setting a boundary now teaches people that they also have to change their expectations of you and the way that they deal with you, which is always difficult in a system. If you're teaching someone, this is how I behave, so this is how you can behave, and then all of a sudden I change the rules, people have to adapt to it. People with a thinking preference flip into the feeling after midlife, and then they become so much more open and friendly. It's an interesting balance because we all have everything in us. I think what I'm noticing, or the way that I would put it, I still don't like conflict very much, but there is how did they put it? Living with less external affirmation. That is definitely something that I would also maybe rephrase as, there is less caring about what other people think anymore, right? Like I used to care about what other people thought a lot more. And now it's like, no, I am 50 years of age. Society tells me that I'm no longer that relevant anyway, and with that comes a lot of freedom, on top of the whole society changing and the role of the woman changing and all of the freedoms that hopefully nobody's going to try and take away anytime soon. That was Navigating Midlife Using Typology as a Guide. And we are at 20 minutes. Should we try and read the case? Maybe I'll just read the case and then without talking about it too much, to give you an idea. Okay, profile. I just can't get the balance right, Paula said as she sat down with her academic advisor. I'm happy that I'm in graduate school now. It's wonderful. I love the stimulation and the challenge. The 15 years I stayed home with my children were nice too, but I always felt like I was missing something. Even though I served on a lot of school and community boards, which were stimulating, I wanted to make more of a difference. I wanted to be seen as a professional, and school is wonderful. I just can't live without some way to grow, but my academic life and family are at war, and I don't want to be the resulting casualty. Last semester, I took a leave from school to try to get some order and harmony back at home, but I couldn't stand it. I felt as though my hands were tied behind my back. I would lash out at my children and husband in all kinds of inappropriate ways. I'm glad that I'm back in school, but I also feel guilty and selfish. I want to take care of my family, but I also want to take care of myself. Yeah, I think we all have a version of that. Okay. Paula was an outgoing person who had an engaging manner and conversed easily. She had clearly thought her situation through and seemed to enjoy talking about it. She seemed enthusiastic, but she also seemed tired. She was in a hurry. There were things to do and people to see, and Paula wasn't a patient person. Paula seemed to be running an important race, torn between keeping an eye on the goal and an eye on the crowd. She wanted to commit to the race, but she also wanted to watch the crowd. She wanted to achieve and accomplish things with everyone approving and cheering her on. Paula didn't want to miss anything, and she was using a lot of energy. Yeah, that's the thing. Like when we do something for ourselves, we want other people to be happy for us. When she reflected on it, Paula didn't see herself running a race. Rather, she saw herself running in circles, she told her advisor. There are high and low points, but I can't get anywhere. I want my family and friends, and I want myself. I care about them, and I don't have time for fighting with them. But I have to get this degree so I can take care of myself and my children too, if it should come to that. My friend's husband died at 47. That stays in my mind, and I know I need to be able to take care of myself and my children financially and emotionally. Beyond that, she continued, I need to know what my potential and my possibilities are. I know my life has purpose. I don't think there's any answer to this problem, but it does help to talk to you about it. Each time I tell my story, I know it better. Nothing is more important than telling my story. My friends all listen to my story and they're important to me. I couldn't live without them. Paula's sensitivity, openness to sharing, and need for direction, achievement, and relationship is notable. She needs to look at her potential, her hopes, and dreams in a relaxed, undemanding way that enables her to acknowledge and validate the progress she has made. Paula knew she had accomplished a lot, but she didn't think it was enough. Whether she knew the cost of always feeling things were not enough, her sense of feeling driven wasn't clear. After some time, Paula admitted to her advisor that she wouldn't like it if her family and friends weren't there for her, but she wouldn't know more about herself if they weren't. She admitted that she didn't think she knew very much about herself. You know a great deal about your family and friends, but might knowing about yourself also be good to them as well as you? Her advisor asked. Paula wasn't sure. It was something she hadn't considered before. So here's a summary of observations. Paula feels conflict between her need for personal growth and achievement and her need to please and accommodate others. Paula's gifts are her ability to relate to others and her verbal expressiveness. Paula is impatient with slow process. Helpers and support groups are especially important to Paula because of her need to tell her story and have it heard. Paula needs to live in the present with its everyday routine and limitations, not the ideal world. Paula sees her need for introspection and assessment of her personal values as separate from the values held by others, which is an assumption, right? All right, so now I'm going to read the analysis as well. Paula is torn between two common conflicts, the conflict between self and others and between living in the present and living for the future. Even though the situation is frustrating and confusing for her, it holds great promise. Her situation provides her with the possibility of working out a new balance in her life and learning about limitations and patience. Paula is caring and giving. She wants to care for her family and keep harmony and order at home. Like most extroverted feelers, she's often tempted to define herself by the needs and desires of others. She knows more about the people around her than she knows about herself, and she's often torn between what they want from her and what she wants for herself. At this point, I wonder how much the people around her know about her. The thing that comes to mind is even in friendship relationships with people who don't have dominant extroverted feeling preferences, I know that there was a time that I started not feeling resentful, but that I was very aware of me always asking questions. How are you doing? What do you need? How can I support you? And when the conversation came to me, I kind of shut down. I didn't share that much, not because I didn't want to be a burden, but also because they didn't really ask. And I didn't really want to start sharing without being invited to do so. Until I realized that I'm shooting myself in the foot with that, because normal people or people who don't have extroverted feeling preferences may not ask. And it doesn't mean that they don't care. It just means that they might be expecting you to start talking without being prompted because they don't want to invade your privacy, right? So hot tip for young ENFJs out there: if you feel neglected by your friends, go out and make the first contact. The example that comes to mind is my 50th birthday party a few weeks ago. I organized it because I know my friends weren't going to organize it. I know my husband is busy taking care of his parents. We've recently arrived. I don't have family members close. If I wasn't going to organize my own party, nobody was going to do it for me, and that's okay. This romanticized notion of waiting, well, if they knew me, they should read my mind and they should just give me everything without me having to ask for it, because if I ask for it, it doesn't matter as much or it loses value in some way. That is something that I would encourage everyone to question that assumption. Not to say get over it, because you literally can make yourself happy. If you know what you want, then do it. Don't wait for anyone else to do it. By all means, go out and ask if they would want to help you, if they have time to help you. But I mean, everybody's busy these days, so it always helps to have an idea and to be very specific about what you want, because that helps people. People want to give you what you want, but in order to do that, they need to know what you want, right? Okay, tangent. Paula is intelligent, ambitious, and impatient, and she is eager to improve herself in the world. She wants to discover her purpose and live up to her potential, and her plans are quite extensive. But her conflicts temporarily immobilize her, and she hates immobilization. In typological terms, the immobilization may be a gift if it can teach her something about her introverted functions. Immobilization will require that she give up her tendency to take quick action and her desire for clear direction, but it may encourage her to be reflective. Paula needs to make choices and prioritize before she can move ahead. Her introverted thinking, which is the least preferred function, might help her evaluate in very personal terms the cost and potential of each choice she must make and accept the painful and important reality that she can't be available for everyone or accomplish every goal she sets for herself. Her feeling function, if used in an introverted attitude, might help her know more about what she values instead of what others value, which extroverted feelers tend to do. This kind of decision-making, when made from a reflective point of view, can lead to more meaning and purpose and less of a feeling of running in circles. It's the setting of priorities, not an agenda set by other people, but what's in here. Her thinking function may also, if she can develop some of its skills, help her arrange her world to reflect her priorities by assisting her with assertion. It may help her to learn to say no to things that she wants to leave for others and to live as well as she can with the conflicts and disappointment that this can sometimes generate. That's the other thing. A big learning of differentiation is other people have the right to be upset, and I don't have to fix it. Other people can be annoyed, and I don't have to fix it. It is not my fault that they are annoyed. This is something, this taking radical responsibility for your feelings is very difficult because we're not used to it. We are still in this paradigm of he's supposed to make me happy, or I am supposed to make him happy, or whatever relationship constellation you might be in. It's this expectation of other people make us feel something. And I have come to believe that that is just not true. If the person didn't do one thing, there is an action and reaction, sure, but the kind of reaction, you do have influence over the kind of reaction and the way that you interpret whatever it is that they did, and you do have the option to look at it through different perspectives. Yes, you can get annoyed, you can get angry, but think about if on any other day, if you had slept better or if you weren't hungry, would you have the same reaction and emotion, or would it have triggered a different emotion? And then whatever first emotion you have, it doesn't mean that that is the one that needs to define the remainder of the conversation. So yeah, there's lots to be said about that. But the gist of it, other people can be upset, and that can be okay. You don't have to be upset with them. They can be upset and you can be fine. That is a thing. I know, it's weird, but it's true. Her sensing function may also help her if, when it is developed, she can learn how to accept things the way they are and accept limitations. Yeah, it might even bring her joy as she learns to accept the gifts of each moment. That's a stretch, but yes. It may help her see the limits of what she can envision or become in life. It may help her live in the present as well as imagine the future. It may also help her live with who she is now and the way things are, as well as what she might become and how things might be. Right. So there's also this thing of the tension between we are happy where we are and still we want to change and still we want to develop and still we want to grow. Like there's also a common tension that I see in relationships, or conflict that I see in relationships. One partner's like, but things are going so great. Why do you want to rock the boat? It's so nice right now. Why do you want to change it? And it's like, yeah, but there's more. So the intuiting types tend to move the goalpost and say, but what about this other thing? Okay, so now we have reached this, so what about the next thing? Because we like a little movement, and ENFJs specifically like movement and forward motion and growth and development. Yeah, so absolutely, enjoying the present moment as well is also important. But the two are not mutually exclusive. Paula's midlife task requires that she integrate what she desires with her concern for what those around her desire, and that she comes to focus, prioritize, relax, and live the best that she can, taking one day at a time. Again, I think that's true for all of us. She will be closer to her center and feel more comfortable, less driven, less conflicted, and less dependent on external affirmation when she knows that she can't and doesn't need to be everything to everyone. That is kind of our core programming though, right? So that is going to be very difficult to overcome, and that's going to need a lot of conscious effort to move through that. Just saying, yes, we don't have to be everything to everyone. And yes, we want to be everything to everyone. So just awareness helps. Awareness helps. She'll be closer to her center when she comes to know that she can love others even when she doesn't please them all the time. What I said, other people have the right to their emotions, whatever they might want them to be. And when she knows that she can access inner as well as outer guidance, and when she comes to know she can only give to others what she first possesses, including herself. So possessing yourself, or having taken care of yourself, like I said, this pouring from an empty cup, not possible. But people, especially mothers, tend to have a lot more guilt and conflict around it because of the societal messages we've been fed all our lives. And going into those would burst the frame of this video, so I'm just going to leave it here. Okay, so much for Navigating Midlife Using Typology as a Guide by Eleanor S, Corlett and Nancy B, Millner. If you enjoyed this video, you're probably gonna like this next one as well. I'll see you there.